15 people signed to get you fired, Diane said, tossing a sheet of paper onto my keyboard. Pack up by Friday. The decision's already made. Her mouth curved upward as she stood over my desk, waiting for me to break down. I picked up the paper, scanning the names. Her lunch crowd, the new hires, still on probation. A few people who couldn't meet my eyes in the hallway lately. Interesting timing, I said, keeping my voice level as I opened my drawer and removed a manila folder. You might want to take a look at this too. It has 47 signatures. I slid the stack across my desk. She snatched it up, annoyed at first, then confused. When she read the title, Formal Request for Management Conduct Investigation, the smugness vanished from her face. This is nothing but lies, she whispered, pages trembling in her hand. Before I could respond, the office door opened. Head of Human Resources walked in with 2 senior directors. We received this documentation this morning, the HR lead said. We need to speak with both of you. Before we continue further, thank you for listening to my story. Where are you tuning in from today? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and it means the world to connect with you all. My name is Melanie, and until 6 months ago, I was just someone who loved her job. I'd been with the company for 4 years as a customer solutions specialist, had the highest satisfaction ratings for 3 years running, and trained most of the newer team members. I wasn't perfect, but I worked hard and cared about doing right by our customers. Everything changed when management restructured our department. They brought in Diane to modernize operations and boost efficiency metrics. From day one, something felt off. In our first one-on-one meeting, she barely glanced at my performance history. Your numbers are okay, but we're moving toward a different approach now, she said, tapping her fingernails against her tablet. Some people adapt, some don't. Within a week, she'd assembled her inner circle, mostly newer employees and a few veterans eager for promotion. They started having lunch together daily, private meetings that weren't on the shared calendar. The changes came quickly. My regular clients were reassigned without explanation. We're balancing workloads, was the only answer I received when I asked why. Then came the impossible deadlines. Projects that normally took 3 days suddenly needed to be completed overnight. In team meetings, Diane had a special way of undermining me. Melanie's approach is traditional, she'd say when I offered suggestions. Let's hear some fresh thinking. Then someone from her lunch group would suggest nearly the same idea, and she'd call it innovative and exactly what we need. The isolation was subtle at first. Conversations stopped when I approached the break room. Meetings happened that I wasn't invited to. Information reached me after decisions were already made. Maybe she just has a different management style. My friend Raj told me over coffee. He worked in a different department. Give it time. I tried. I adapted my work schedule, coming in earlier to get ahead of deadlines. I updated my presentation style. I even bought new clothes, wondering if my traditional approach extended to my wardrobe. Nothing changed. In fact, 3 months into Diane's leadership, she implemented a new peer review system. Each week, team members would evaluate each other anonymously on collaboration and innovative thinking. Somehow, my scores were always the lowest, though no specific feedback was ever shared with me. Performance improvement plan, Diane announced during one of our infrequent one-on-ones. Your scores aren't meeting expectations. Which scores exactly? I asked. She slid a paper across the desk. Everything's trending down. Customer satisfaction, team collaboration, project completion. I frowned. Can I see the raw data? These numbers don't match what I've been tracking. The metrics are compiled through our new system, she said. You wouldn't understand the algorithm. Just focus on improving. That night, I couldn't sleep. For the first time in my career, I was being told I wasn't good enough, but something didn't add up. I still had customers requesting me specifically. Project managers from other teams still sought me out for help. The next morning, I started looking more closely at everything. I made copies of all my reports before submitting them. I saved every email. I documented strange occurrences. Projects yanked away just before completion. Credit for my work appearing under other names. I ate lunch alone most days, finding a quiet spot in the courtyard. That's where Elena found me one Tuesday afternoon. She was new, hired directly by Diane, just 2 months earlier. Can I join you? She asked, looking nervous. We ate in silence for a few minutes before she spoke again. I need to tell you something, but you can't tell anyone I said it. She glanced around. Diane asked me to sign a paper today. It was about you. My stomach tightened. What kind of paper? A complaint, saying you were difficult to work with and unwilling to change. Elena stared at her sandwich. She said if I didn't sign it, she'd extend my probation period because I wasn't showing team loyalty. I took a deep breath. Did you sign it? Elena nodded, eyes filling with tears. I need this job. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, I said, reaching out to touch her hand. Thank you for telling me. That conversation changed everything. Not because I was angry, though I was, but because it confirmed what I'd suspected. This wasn't about performance. This was something else entirely. Over the next few weeks, I paid closer attention to everything happening in our department. Customer complaint numbers were rising, but Diane reported improvement trends to upper management. Staff turnover had doubled, yet she spoke of increased team cohesion. Most importantly, I wasn't the only one suffering. People looked tired, stressed. Even members of her inner circle seemed to be walking on eggshells. I made a decision. Instead of fighting back directly, I would simply create space for truth to emerge. It started with small conversations. How's your workload? I'd ask someone, waiting for coffee. That seemed like a tough meeting. You okay? I'd say to someone sitting alone afterward. At first, people were cautious, but gradually, stories began to emerge. Thomas, with the company for 8 years, told me how his signature had appeared on reports he never approved. When I questioned it, Diane said, maybe I forgot signing. Made me feel crazy. Maria from accounting mentioned customer refunds that didn't match our stated policy. The numbers don't add up, but nobody wants to question it. Jamie, a senior specialist who'd been avoiding me for months, finally stopped by my desk late one evening. She told me, you said I wasn't pulling my weight, Jamie said. But then I overheard her telling Chris that I said the same about him. Each conversation connected to others. A pattern emerged of manipulation, data misrepresentation, and intimidation. People who questioned anything were isolated, then pushed out. I didn't set out to build a case. I just listened. But as weeks passed, more colleagues sought me out, sharing experiences that mirrored my own. Trust built slowly, but it built. Ollie from data analytics was the game changer. He stopped me in the parking lot one evening. I've been tracking some inconsistencies, he said quietly. Between the performance numbers Diane reports and what the system actually shows, it's not good. How bad is it? I asked. Bad enough that I've been keeping separate records for 2 months. He glanced around the empty lot. She's manipulating data to make herself look good while setting up certain people to fail. Can you prove it? He nodded. I can. And I'm not the only one with evidence. That weekend, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by notes and began connecting all the pieces. By Sunday night, I had a clear picture of systematic abuse of power affecting dozens of employees. The question was, what to do with this information? My apartment felt too small suddenly, the weight of everything I'd learned pressing in on me. I stepped onto my tiny balcony, watching lights flicker across the city. In one of those buildings was the office where everything had gone so wrong. My phone buzzed with a text from Ollie. Heard from Kira. Diane's planning something big this week. Be ready. I took a deep breath of night air. Whatever was coming, I wasn't alone anymore. And more importantly, I was prepared. The next morning at work felt different. I noticed the glances, the whispers that stopped when I approached. Something had shifted. Midday, Kira, a recent hire who sat 3 desks down, slipped a note onto my keyboard when passing. Emergency team meeting called for Thursday. About you. Be prepared. That gave me 2 days. 2 days to gather everything I documented over months into something clear and actionable. That evening, I met Ollie at a coffee shop 6 blocks from the office. He brought his laptop and files organized with timestamps and user logs. She's created her own reporting system, he explained, voice low despite the ambient noise. The numbers upper management sees aren't from our actual tracking software. She inputs them herself. How many people know this? I asked. Not many. She's smart, only gives certain access to certain people. Nobody has the full picture except her. He pushed his glasses up. At least that's what she thinks. Ollie had been quietly building a parallel database, capturing the real numbers as they came in, and comparing them to what was reported upward. Customer satisfaction had actually dropped 32% under Diane's leadership. Employee errors had increased. Resolution times were longer. She blames specific people for these failures, Ollie said. But look at the pattern. The pattern was clear. People who questioned her. People who didn't join her lunch group. People with institutional knowledge who remembered how things worked before she arrived. People like me. She's creating a paper trail to justify removing anyone who might expose what's happening, I said. Ollie nodded. And she's almost ready to make her move on you. Kira overheard her talking about it. Kira's warning proved accurate. The next day, I saw Diane moving through the office, spending unusual amounts of time with certain team members. Her expression was different, more intense, more focused. By Wednesday afternoon, 4 different people had found ways to warn me. She's getting signatures. She's building a case. Be careful tomorrow. That night, I made the hardest decision of my career. If Diane was gathering signatures against me, I had a choice: wait for the attack or prepare a defense. I sent messages to 7 people who had shared the most serious concerns. We met at a diner far from the office, everyone arriving separately over the course of an hour. Ollie brought his data. Maria from accounting had documented financial discrepancies. Thomas had copies of reports with his forged approval. 3 others had documented patterns of intimidation. But it was Jamie who brought the most damning evidence. She's not just manipulating data, Jamie said, sliding a folder across the table. She's taking credit for other departments' successes while blaming her failures on us. Inside were emails Jamie had preserved, showing how Diane had claimed project results that weren't hers, misrepresented timelines, and systematically undermined anyone who threatened her narrative. If we do this, I said, looking around at the faces lit by the diner's fluorescent lights, there's no going back. She'll fight hard. She's already fighting dirty, Thomas said, and we're losing. We spent 3 hours compiling everything into a clear timeline of events. Not just my experiences, everyone's. A pattern of behavior affecting the entire department, the company's integrity, and ultimately, our customers. The question became, who could we trust to receive this information? Not direct management, Maria said. They only see what she shows them. We need to go higher, Ollie suggested, and to employee relations simultaneously. By midnight, we had a plan. We would prepare a formal request for investigation with our evidence attached. But we needed more than just the 7 of us. People are scared, Jamie said. She's created an environment where everyone fears for their job. Then we need to show them they're not alone, I replied. The next morning, while Diane was in her weekly executive meeting, something remarkable happened. Word spread quietly through the department. Small groups gathered in the break room, by the elevators, in the courtyard. People who had been avoiding each other for months were talking, sharing, comparing notes. By lunchtime, we had 29 people ready to sign our request. By mid-afternoon, 42. The final count was 47 signatures, representing over 80% of the department. People Diane thought were loyal to her, people she thought were too afraid to speak up, people she had dismissed as unimportant. We submitted our documentation to the head of human resources, the chief operations officer, and the ethics committee simultaneously at 8:30 Thursday morning. Just as Diane arrived for work, I was at my desk when she approached, the petition in hand, completely unaware that wheels were already in motion. After she left with the HR team, the office was eerily quiet. I sat alone, my heart pounding despite my calm exterior. Years of work, my reputation, my future, everything hung in the balance. The investigation began immediately. First, they questioned Diane for 2 hours, then me. Then, one by one, people from across the department. By late afternoon, the truth was impossible to ignore. The data proved what we had all experienced. Diane hadn't just targeted me. She had created a toxic environment that was damaging the entire company. At 5:15 p.m., the COO emerged from the conference room where interviews had been conducted all day. His face was grave as he asked me to join him. "We've reviewed the documentation," he said once the door closed behind us, "and conducted 17 interviews so far." I nodded, waiting. "I want to apologize," he continued. "This should never have happened, and we should have seen it sooner." "What happens now?" I asked. "Diane has been placed on administrative leave, pending a full review. But given what we've uncovered today, she will not be returning to a management position." Relief washed over me, but it was complicated by sadness for what everyone had endured. "And the department?" I asked. "That's partly why I wanted to speak with you," he said. "We need someone to help steady things while we determine next steps. Someone the team trusts." I thought about it for a moment. I think we need more than one person. This happened partly because power was too concentrated. That evening, I left the building exhausted, but lighter than I'd felt in months. The nightmare wasn't over, but the truth was finally out. As I walked to my car, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to find Elena hurrying across the parking lot. "I wanted to say thank you," she said, "and I'm sorry I wasn't braver sooner." "You were brave when it counted," I told her. "That's what matters." The next week was surreal. Diane was gone, but the damage remained. Trust had been broken, not just in her, but in the company that had allowed it to happen. The HR team worked overtime conducting interviews, reviewing evidence, and assessing the full impact. The results were worse than anyone had imagined. Performance data had been systematically manipulated for months. Customer issues had been hidden. Employees had been pitted against each other through false information. 2 weeks after the petition incident, the COO called a department-wide meeting. He didn't minimize what had happened or make excuses. "We failed you," he said simply, "and we're committed to ensuring it never happens again." The recovery plan was comprehensive. A team of 5 department veterans, including me, would serve as an interim leadership council while a search for new management began. All performance reviews from the past 6 months would be reassessed. Every employee affected would have the opportunity to clear their record. Most importantly, a new system of checks and balances would be implemented throughout the company. "We want to create a structure where this kind of abuse cannot happen again," the COO explained, "and we want your input on how to build it." The healing started slowly. Some wounds were too deep for quick fixes. Trust would take time to rebuild, but there were immediate positive changes. The tension that had filled our workspace for months began to lift. People stopped whispering and started talking openly again. Ideas flowed more freely in meetings. 1 month after Diane's removal, I received an email from the COO requesting a private meeting. "We've been reviewing applications for the new department head," he said when I arrived at his office, "and your name has been submitted by multiple team members." I hadn't applied for the position, hadn't even considered it. "I'm not sure that's the right move," I said honestly, "for me or for the team." He nodded. "That's exactly why many think you're the right person. You're not seeking power, but there's another option I'd like to discuss." The option was unexpected. Instead of a traditional management structure, he proposed creating a new framework, one where leadership was more distributed, more transparent, and more accountable. "We want to pilot it in your department first," he explained. "A system where managers are regularly evaluated by their teams, where data is visible to everyone, where decisions require input from multiple levels." "And you want me to help design it?" I asked. "We want you to lead it," he said, "not as a traditional manager, but as someone who understands both the frontline work and the importance of ethical leadership." I thought about everything that had happened, the isolation, the manipulation, the fear, but also the courage people had shown when they finally stood together. "I'll do it on one condition," I said. "It can't be just me. It needs to be a true team effort." He agreed, and we spent the next hour outlining a framework that would fundamentally change how the department operated. As I left his office, I passed the now empty space that had been Diane's. Through the glass, I could see bare walls where her credentials had hung, an empty desk where she had plotted against her own team. I felt no satisfaction, no sense of victory, just a quiet determination that what happened to us would serve a purpose. It would become the catalyst for something better. That evening, as I drove home, my phone rang. It was Raj, my friend from another department. "I heard they offered you a leadership position," he said. "Congratulations." "Thanks, but it's not what you think," I replied. "It's something new we're building together. After what you all went through, I'm not surprised you're creating something different," he said. "But there's something else you should know." His tone made me pull over to the side of the road. "What is it?" I asked. "Diane's been calling people, telling a different story about what happened," he said. "And she's not alone. She has supporters in other departments who believe her version of events." I gripped the steering wheel, watching cars pass by in the growing darkness. "She's saying it was a coordinated attack by underperformers," Raj continued. that you manipulated people and data to undermine her because you wanted her job. After everything we'd uncovered, after all the evidence, she was still trying to rewrite the narrative. How many people is she reaching? I asked. Enough that you should be prepared, he said. This isn't over yet. I thanked him for the warning and sat in my parked car, thinking, of course, it wasn't over. People like Diane didn't simply accept defeat and disappear. The question was, what would she do next? And how far would she go to reclaim her version of the truth? I didn't sleep much that night. Diane's counter-narrative wasn't just about saving her reputation. It was about erasing our truth. By morning, I had decided to share Raj's warning with the Interim Leadership Council. We should have expected this, Ollie said when we gathered before work. She built her career on controlling narratives. What can she really do now? Asked Thomas. She's been removed. The evidence is overwhelming. Maria shook her head. Never underestimate someone fighting for survival. She has connections in other departments, friends in the industry. She's worked here for years. She was right. Within days, strange things began happening. Emails arrived from other teams questioning our data. Longtime colleagues suddenly became distant. 2 client accounts requested different department contacts without explanation. Then came the rumor that Diane was interviewing with one of our biggest competitors. If she goes there with her version of events, it could damage all our reputations, Jamie warned. The COO called me to his office the following Tuesday. I'm hearing concerning things, he said, motioning for me to sit. There seems to be an organized effort to discredit the investigation findings. Diane, I said simply. He nodded. She's reached out to several directors, claiming she has evidence that your group falsified data to remove her. My heart sank. What does she have? Nothing substantial, but she's persistent. And unfortunately, she knows exactly which buttons to push with certain people. He looked tired, the kind of exhaustion that comes from fighting an invisible battle. We stand by our investigation, he continued. But I need to know, is there anything at all, that she could twist to support her claims? I thought carefully. We were meticulous about documentation. Every claim is backed by system logs, timestamps, multiple witnesses. But, she's skilled at making connections that don't exist, at taking small truths and building false narratives around them. He leaned forward. She's requested a formal review of the investigation. The board has denied it, but she's not backing down. As I left his office, a notification pinged on my phone, an industry networking site. Diane had updated her profile, listing herself as Department Director, on sabbatical, at our company, as if she'd chosen to take time away, as if she'd be returning. That same afternoon, Elena rushed to my desk, her face pale. She called me, she whispered. Diane called my personal number. What did she say? That if I recanted my statement, admitted I was pressured to sign against her, she'd help me find a better position somewhere else. Elena's hands trembled. She said otherwise my career was over before it started. Similar reports came throughout the week. Diane was systematically contacting everyone who had signed our document, especially the newer employees, those most vulnerable. 2 people came to me in tears, wondering if they should just tell her what she wanted to hear to make it stop. Another reported that their potential job offer suddenly disappeared after a reference check. We needed to act, but carefully. This wasn't about Diane anymore. It was about protecting everyone who had risked standing up to her. I scheduled an emergency meeting with the Leadership Council and HR. She's targeting the most vulnerable first, I explained. Using fear, just like before. We can issue cease and desist notifications, the HR director offered. Make it clear she's not to contact current employees. That won't stop her, Thomas said. She'll just get more careful about how she does it. Then we need to remove her ability to cause harm altogether, I said quietly. Every head turned toward me. What do you have in mind? Ollie asked. I took a deep breath. We need absolute transparency, not just within our team, but with the entire company and beyond. My plan was simple but required courage. Instead of fighting Diane's narrative in the shadows, we would bring everything into the light. Every piece of evidence, every testimony, every manipulation. We create a comprehensive case study, I explained, not as accusation, but as organizational learning. How toxicity develops, how data can be manipulated, how fear can silence people. You want to publish our experience? Maria asked, surprised. As an anonymous case study? Yes, with the company's full support, a detailed account of what happened, how it was discovered, and what systems were created to prevent it from happening again. The HR director looked skeptical. Publishing internal issues is risky. Not publishing them is riskier, I countered. Right now, Diane controls the external narrative. She's contacting people outside our department, outside our company even. If we don't define what happened, she will. The debate lasted hours. The potential downsides were significant. Bad publicity, legal concerns, morale impacts. But the alternative was allowing Diane's version to spread unchallenged. Finally, the COO made the call. We'll take a modified version of this approach to the board. No identifying names, but complete transparency about what happened and how we're fixing it. We worked through the weekend preparing the presentation. Every claim triple-checked. Every example anonymized but specific enough to be credible. The board meeting was scheduled for Monday morning. Sunday night, my phone rang with an unknown number. Is this Melanie? The voice was unfamiliar. Yes. Who's this? My name's Vince. I'm VP of Operations at Helios Industries. My stomach tightened. Helios was our largest competitor. Diane applied for a director position with us last week, he continued. She was impressive in her interview, but something felt off about her explanation for leaving your company. I remained silent, unsure how to respond. I reached out to a colleague on your board, he continued. She suggested I speak with you directly. What did Diane tell you about her departure? I asked carefully. That she was taking temporary leave after a group of underperforming employees attempted to undermine her improvement initiatives. He paused. She was quite specific about one employee in particular who organized the effort. Someone named Melanie. There it was. She wasn't just defending herself. She was actively trying to damage my reputation in the industry. I see, I said, keeping my voice steady. We've already extended a provisional offer, he added. Before we finalize, I wanted to get another perspective. This was my moment. I could tell him everything, show him the evidence, warn him about what Diane had done, or I could take the higher road and say nothing. I chose a third option. I think it would be valuable for you to review our upcoming board presentation before making your decision, I said. I can't discuss specifics, but we're presenting a comprehensive case study tomorrow on leadership accountability. I believe you'll find it relevant to your hiring process. That sounds intriguing, he replied. I'd appreciate that opportunity. The next morning, the boardroom was packed, not just board members, but department heads from across the company. And, at the COO's invitation, Vince from Helios Industries sat in the back row. For 2 hours, we presented the full timeline of events, the data manipulation, the targeted intimidation, the systematic undermining of team members, all anonymized, but thoroughly documented with irrefutable evidence. We concluded not with blame, but with solutions. The new leadership structure we were implementing, the transparency safeguards, the communication channels that ensured no single person could control information flow. When we finished, the room was silent. Then the board chair spoke. This is difficult but necessary work, she said. Thank you for your courage in presenting it. We unanimously approve the structural changes proposed and commit to implementing similar oversight across all departments. As people filed out, Vince approached me. That was illuminating, he said, especially the data analysis section. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. We'll be withdrawing our offer to Diane this afternoon, he added, and I'd like to discuss how we might implement some of your accountability measures at Helios. In that moment, I realized the true power of what we'd built, not just a defense against one toxic leader, but a framework that could transform entire workplaces. Within a week, our case study, with all names and identifying details removed, was shared company-wide as a training tool. A month later, it was presented at an industry conference on workplace ethics. By the end of the quarter, 3 other major companies had requested permission to use it in their leadership development programs. Diane never got another opportunity to lead a team, not because we blacklisted her, but because the transparency we created made her tactics impossible to hide. Her power had always depended on isolation and secrecy. In the open, she couldn't operate. We never heard from her again after Helios withdrew their offer. Some said she left the industry altogether. Others heard she took a non-management role somewhere with a fresh start. I wished her healing, whatever path she chose. As for our department, we thrived. The distributed leadership model proved so successful that it became standard practice throughout the company. Employee satisfaction scores reached their highest point in 5 years. Turnover dropped to record lows. 6 months after Diane tossed that petition onto my keyboard, I received an Industry Leadership Award for the case study and structural reforms it inspired. Standing at the podium, looking out at hundreds of professionals, I thought about how differently things might have ended if I'd fought back with the same tactics Diane used: manipulation, personal attacks, fear. I might have won the battle, but become exactly what I was fighting against. Instead, we changed not just our workplace, but created a model that helped thousands of others. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't hurting someone who hurt you. It's building something so much better that their methods become obsolete. It's creating light that makes hiding impossible. The petition meant to end my career now hangs, framed, in our training center, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that when people stand together for truth, systems can change for the better. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you in any way, please hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced or witnessed workplace toxicity? How did you handle it? Your stories matter, and they help others feel less alone in their struggles. Subscribe for more real-life experiences that remind us we're stronger together than we ever could be alone.